You beat on user growth, you beat on revenue. What's driving revenue growth in particular in terms of what's resonating with advertisers?
Well, we were really pleased with our performance. It was a great start to 2019. This is more of the same hard work for us of trying to deliver great outcomes for advertisers and continuing to improve the product so we can have a great experience for the people who use the service. It resulted in 11% year-over-year DAU growth and 18% or 20% constant currency revenue growth.
Now, shares are taking off, up 15% right now. You've got this new metric, monetizable daily active users, which did grow sequentially, up from 126 million to 134 million. How sustainable is that kind of growth? Will we see that through this year?
Well, MDAU, and we've disclosed the percentage growth for the last 9 quarters now. It's been growing in this range of 9 to 14 or 15% for the last couple of years. The work for us is to get out of that range by continuing to improve the service and give people a great experience when they come to Twitter. So we're always working on improving the timeline, improving relevance of the notifications that we send you. We'll do work this year to improve onboarding. We've got this great prototype app now where you can see the things that we're experimenting with, and we'll bring the best of those to the platform over time.
So are you expecting that number to grow as quickly as it has grown?
Well, we're working hard to make it grow, and we'll have to see what it does over time. Generally, you see a big seasonal uptick in the first quarter where there's a large absolute growth in the first quarter, and then the work for us is to sustain that in terms of percentage growth over the course of the year. But there are events and typical seasonality that tend to help that number on an absolute basis in Q1.
Now, some analysts are saying this new number is not very transparent. We don't know how you decide what is a monetizable daily active user. So should we be concerned about that? And can you give us a little bit more information?
We actually feel like it's perfect transparency because it's the number that we goal against internally. So monetizable daily active users are people who go to twitter.com or to one of the apps that you'd use on your phone, who log in and who can see ads every day. So we can't think of a number that'd be more simple or transparent than that to share with people. And importantly, it's the exact number that we goal against internally. We had been sharing a number externally for some time, which was monthly active usage. If we get people to come to Twitter once a month, we have failed. We're not delivering for them. We want people to come every day. We want them to see value in Twitter and keep coming back to find about the things that are happening in the world and what people are talking about.
Monthly active users, that's the number you're going to stop reporting.
That's right.
As of this quarter, though it's continuing to decline. International growth seems to be slowing down. Your revenue guidance for Q2 was a little light. Should we be worried about those?
So a couple things in there. On MAU, MAU is a more inclusive metric. It includes people who get text messages with tweets in them and things that we're not designing around right now that aren't about the best experience you can get with Twitter. So that number had moved around a bit over the last year while DAU was going up, MAU was going down. They're apples and oranges. In terms of revenue growth, remember we drove this broad recovery that began last year outside of the United States. So the comps are tougher internationally in the first half of this year. They get harder in the second half of the year in the United States. That's not meant as an excuse, it's just the math and how it works. The challenge for us and the work that we'll endeavor to undertake all year is continuing to improve the ad products, continuing to drive better relevance and better ad formats so that we can deliver great results regardless of what the growth rates were last year.
You've been working on improving the health of the platform. You say 38% of content is now being flagged by technology and flagged for human review. Is that correct?
So 38% of the abusive tweets that we ultimately review are being flagged by machine learning as opposed to by humans. That's correct.
How much, realistically, can you get that number up? How much more work can the technology do and how fast?
Well, we think it can do more. And it'll be hard to get to perfect, but the goal is for us to have really clear policies, to have a product that can enforce the policies, and to have really good people behind the product who can support the product in supporting the policies. So hopefully that 38% goes up, but we're really proud of the progress that we're making.
Now, still, there continue to be concerns about hate, misinformation, fake news spreading on social media. We recently had this situation in Sri Lanka. A series of bombings and social media was completely shut down. Was Twitter shut down in Sri Lanka?
So instead of talking about specific examples, let me talk more broadly about how we think about these things. We're in this incredibly dynamic environment where people are using platforms like Twitter in different ways all the time. And we need to both be respectful of the tragedies that sometimes will occur We need to be thoughtful about how perpetrators use the platform, how victims use it, how people who are seeking news who are 10,000 miles away use a service like Twitter to make sure that people can trust the information that they find and that they're comfortable being a part of the conversation.
That said, what's interesting about the Sri Lanka situation is that the government shut down these services without any evidence that the crime was spun up on social media, but because they were concerned about misinformation and violence spreading on social media in the aftermath. I mean, isn't that a concern, that that is the first reaction of an entire country?
Well, it tells you that there's still work for us to do, and certainly for others to do as well, in making sure that people can trust the information on a service like ours, that it's being used appropriately. It's the reason why health is our #1 priority, both from a resourcing perspective and from a mindset perspective.
Jack Dorsey, your CEO, has said he welcomes regulation. What kind of regulation would you welcome, and how aggressively are you pushing for this kind of regulation in Washington?
So we've said we're open to regulation where it makes sense, and GDPR in Europe, which was implemented in May of last year, is a great example of how that can play out. When a government or a group of governments get together and set clear timelines and clear rules, when we're able to work with them to understand how they envision the rules being enforced, and we've got time to then implement the rules in terms of our policies and our product, and we're then able to be transparent to the people who use the service and advertisers what they can expect from us. And then ultimately, in the case of GDPR, where it didn't really have revenue impact to Twitter, that's a great example of how regulation can play out. We're talking to regulators all over the world all the time, making sure that they understand our priorities and the work that we're doing, and we'll continue to do that as we're open to regulation where it makes sense.
You've been beta testing a prototype app, testing new ideas, getting feedback. What are you testing? What kind of feedback are you getting?
Well, first, it's good to just talk about the prototype generally. For us to put our new ideas out in the open for people to try and learn and for us to get feedback is something we're really proud of. We're trying to move fast in the things that we test, and hopefully we can move fast in how we roll those out into the service over the coming quarters as well. Right now, the work is focused around making Twitter more conversational. Because Twitter's public, because it's real time and personalized, there's so much opportunity to make it easier for people to tweet, easier to follow a conversation so you can tell who started the conversation, who you follow and what they've said, and so you can see the entire conversation as opposed to branches of a conversation because you may have just followed one tweet in the middle of the conversation. That's the work to date, but we'll use it over time for other things as well.